Really?
I mean, look, I got to tell you, I tell these stories about National Harbor, D.C., and this is where all these people are hanging out. You want to meet the high-powered lobby? I got to tell you, man, this casino is apparently the highest-grossing casino in the country. It's I can't even. I don't. There's just like 20,000 people downstairs at the tables, and they're probably all millionaires. Wow. And I cannot fathom. I saw a guy sitting at a table with like 20 grand just playing away, and I'm just like, this is nuts. You go up to the poker room. They had I guess it was. I don't know if you guys know anything about 2550 was on the list, but apparently it was even bigger than that. Long story short, what does that mean? It means everybody who played had to bring $100,000.
Jeez.
So you have basically one or more. That's the minimum.
That's crazy.
And so these are people with $1 million on the table. I was not playing anywhere near that level. I was playing 2.5. And I met a guy who was a lawyer who was talking about how he's actually a lawyer for their family. And he didn't go in any classified details, but it was interesting to hear the perspective he had on what was going on.
Did they drop the charges on that guy?
I mean, it just seems like it's all dirty.
Yeah, I read that they dropped some charges.
Yeah, a bunch of the charges got dropped.
They dropped some charges, but not all.
Yeah, they can't really put him in jail when he was the one laundering their money.
I got to say this. I got to say this right now. If you're a journalist, you're trying to figure out how to get started in journalism, I got a tip for you guys. Because people often ask, what can I do to get started? And everyone always says, buy a cell phone and go to the border. I got a better one for you.
Don't tell stories, though. It's a good idea.
Go to the poker room at MGM National Harbor.
Yo.
No, I'm not kidding. The people I have met there, it is wild. I mean, first of all, I was hanging out with a guy who was a Mises Caucus guy the other day, and he knew who I was, and he was like, oh, and we're talking about normal stuff. But then you meet a guy who says he's a lawyer for the Bankman-Fried family. And I'm like, tell me more, good sir. If you want to get into journalism, or I mean, post-millennial should just have I might do this.
I don't
like,
know
I'm going to
how
hire
to sit at a table.
Also hang out.
No. I'm saying hire somebody.
Too.
Maybe we'll have SCNR hire someone literally just to play 1-3 and keep an ear open. But really, if you want the big shots, it's 2, 5, or 5 times. They're very expensive games and it's hard. But the things you overhear there and the things people are talking about, because these are people in DC who have a lot of money. If they're playing 5-10, that means they spent between $600 and $2,500 to play that game. And I got to tell you, these guys, they play more than that. So you have to wonder what job they have in the D.C. area. And it's not a construction worker. No, you're going to find lobbyists and lawyers, and they love to talk. You can't film here, though. Some casinos do allow it, but if you're in MGM National Harbor, it does not. And probably because these guys are going to be high-powered lawyers, delegates, political staffers, people who are doing things maybe they shouldn't be doing, but you'll hear those opinions. I'm willing to bet you will find a ton of stories if you just play the game and ask like, oh, really? Like, what do you do? What is that like? Oh, is it true what they said about that guy? You're going to get scoops galore. Because these dudes are hanging at the table. They're bored all day. They're there for 6 hours or more.
Probably drinking.
A lot of them are drinking. And the server's coming around offering drinks. Yeah. Actually, but if you go if Saturday night, I'm willing to bet that's a good spot for a journalist to hang out. Poker room at MGM National Harbor. Now all the DC politicians are going like,
they're like, oh,
I don't hear about that.
Yeah. Oh, the ones you've had on the show are like, thanks a lot.
Well, I was saying before, I think this is where they actually launder money. They had like a supervisor come over and track the cash out, write down my name, write down the table I was on, the game that was played, how much money was played, how long I was there, and then thanked me for my business. And I'm like, I wonder if that has to do with money laundering.
That's wild.
Yeah, because we talked about it before. If you want to launder money, I was actually talking to some dude there about it, and he was like, "Nah, you don't need to go to a poker room for that. Just bring up a briefcase." And I'm like, "How do you report on your taxes?"
No.
I came into 20 grand. It's really easy. You got a proxy, a guy who works for your company, or just someone you know who you want to have the money, and then you got a guy who's going to make the donation, and they play a hand of poker. And then the guy goes, oh, geez, I'm going to bet 20,000. Ah, you beat me.
Right.
And there's no record of what cards you had. You just muck them. So you don't even know if it was a con game. All you see on camera is 2 guys played a game of poker and 1 guy won 20 grand. Now he reports on his taxes, clean as a whistle.
Right.
And we know what that money's really for.
I've seen Ozarks.
Yeah.
I've seen the show. That's what they did the show, right? I mean, that was the big thing.
I haven't seen Ozarks.
Yeah, they opened a casino so they could launder cartel money. I mean, that was the whole thing about the show. So
the poker room is especially interesting. You sit down with your cash, and then you say, I'm going to bet 10 grand, and the other guy says, I call, and then you go, he got me. So let me explain this. let's say here it can work really simple. Anybody who plays poker knows how you could do this, but for those that understand, you don't need to show your cards. If I've got the best possible hand, let's say I get a royal flush. I have the best hand, but I want Phil to be given money. Phil could have the worst possible hand, or he could have a hand, and then when I bet all my money and he calls my bet and flips over a mediocre hand, all I have to do is say he got me and then put my cards face down in what's called the muck. No one will ever see what I had, which means I can choose to lose without any proof that I actually won.
I wonder if casinos in the future are going to change it so your cards are
Always tracked.
Yeah.
They could. I mean, they can record it. They
Yeah,
could do
we have
little cameras.
we have an RFID table.
Yeah,
They could track it.
Well, and they make the poker hand cameras too for like the big poker.
But you have to
hands
show
and
those.
stuff, right? Yeah.
Now they do RFID where you've got it on the table, you get the cards and you rub them. You don't have to, but you try to get them to move so it reads, and then the computer gets all the information. I don't think they're going to spend $20,000 on an RFID table at any casino.
And they're not going to intentionally expose people that are
and they're-
trading money.
Yeah,
under
they're
the
not
table.
interested
Yeah,
in
they'll stop going
exposing
to the
money
casino.
laundering. They have no reason to stop that.
Like
They
some
like it.
places
I am not
might.
suggesting National Harbor does this or is any way knowledgeable of anything that's going on.
I was
plug
gonna
in the
say,
word
good to
casino.
caveat that.
Yeah, I think it's a fine establishment. I just and genuinely,
Make sure we cover that.
dude, I got to tell you, man, I've been to a lot of casinos. Okay, and a lot of people have, but you go to MGM National Harbor, and I do not understand how these people are there. I don't get it. You want to play one hand of like ultimate hold'em. It's basically it's like blackjack, but it's a different table game. We call them carnival games. It's going to cost you, let's see, it's 50, 50, 50, 150, and then to play is another. So $200 to see one hand, and if you want to raise your bet because you got a good hand, you're putting another 150 on top. How is anyone playing there? I do not
It's
understand.
got to be people. Well, I don't know. Speculation. They're like from a foreign government. They're like, go to DC, get the job done, and give that city $1 million while you're there. Here's take this
It's
10
Maryland,
million
it's
with
not
you.
DC. National Harbor is a Maryland. Yeah,
How far from DC is
a
it?
couple miles.
So it's like a hot spot, a DC hot spot, but it's out of DC.
So this is the thing. I'm like, I really just think maybe there's a lot of big money coming.
Yeah, there's no
through DC.
gambling.
It's
in
like
DC,
Arlington.
right?
No, but
No.
National Harbor is Maryland, and it's just south of DC. And I'm like, maybe DC is more powerful. It's not listed in one of the top cities for millionaires. It's actually nowhere near it. But there's a lot of money running through there, and I'm
There's
seeing
a lot of diplomats too. Diplomats have a lot of money.
that must be it. But I'm like, I'm seeing what looks like some working class dude pulling $25 slot levers, and I'm just like, this is the craziest place I've ever
There's
been.
also
to.
people ruining their lives with gambling. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't take that out of the equation.
Sure, but I don't know, man. You go to like Maryland Live or
Gambling's like heroin to some people, man. It really is bad. It is.
yeah,
a bad addiction.
I get it, but like, I mean, look, if someone's making like $80K a year, they get their one paycheck for the weekend, they're going to be there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Like where all that big money's coming from.